They laughed at the homeless SEAL's burned stable until his dog uncovered the secret buried beneath it. Snow hammered the Bitterroot Mountains as former Navy SEAL Cole Barrett pulled his rusted truck into the forgotten town of Black Hollow. Broke, exhausted, and haunted by war, he came to sell the collapsing stable his dead father left behind. But the moment his retired military dog Atlas started clawing at a hidden stall wall, Cole realized the stable wasn't hiding memories. It was hiding a war someone would kill to keep buried. Comment 1 if you'd fight for the truth no matter the cost, or 0 if you'd walk away. And tell us where you're watching from. The snow started before dawn. By sunrise, the Bitterroot Mountains had vanished behind a curtain of white, their jagged peaks swallowed whole by the storm rolling across western Montana. The truck stop off Highway 93 sat alone beneath the gray sky like a forgotten outpost at the edge of the world. Diesel engines growled in the distance. Neon signs buzzed weakly through the falling snow. The air smelled like gasoline, burnt coffee, and winter. Inside a rusted 1998 Ford pickup parked near the back fence, Cole Barrett woke with his hand wrapped tightly around a combat knife. His breathing came hard, fast, violent. For one terrible second, he thought he was back in Afghanistan again. Smoke, gunfire, the screaming over the radio, bodies buried beneath white mountain snow. Then a wet nose pressed gently against his wrist. Cole blinked. The truck ceiling came back into focus above him. Frost clung to the inside corners of the windshield. His breath drifted through the cab in pale clouds. Atlas sat beside him on the torn bench seat, alert amber eyes locked on Cole's face. The old German shepherd never barked during the nightmares, never panicked. He only watched, waiting for Cole to come back. Cole slowly loosened his grip on the knife. "It's all right, boy," he muttered hoarsely. Atlas lowered his head onto Cole's knee. Outside, wind rattled the truck doors. Cole rubbed both hands over his face, exhaustion hanging off him like wet clothes. 57 years old, former Navy SEAL, divorced, broke, sleeping behind a truck stop with an aging military dog and $23 in his pocket. Funny how life could strip a man down so slowly, he barely noticed it happening. The dashboard clock blinked 6:14 a.m. Atlas shifted slightly as another gust rocked the truck. "You hungry?" Cole asked quietly. The dog's ears twitched. That's the first smart thing either of us thought all morning. Cole opened the truck door. The cold hit like a hammer. Snow crunched beneath his boots as he crossed the parking lot toward the diner beside the gas station. Atlas limped faithfully beside him, favoring his left rear leg from injuries he'd carried home from their last deployment together 7 years earlier. The diner windows glowed warm against the storm. Inside, country music drifted softly from an old radio behind the counter. The smell of bacon grease and burnt toast wrapped around Cole the moment he stepped through the door. Conversations lowered slightly, not because people recognized him, because they recognized what he was, another old veteran drifting through another dying Montana town. Cole ignored the looks and slid into a booth near the back wall. Atlas settled beside him immediately, resting against the heater vent under the table. A waitress in her 60s approached with a coffee pot. Her name tag read, Donna. "You boys surviving out there?" she asked. "Depends who you ask." She gave a tired smile and filled his cup. "Dog can have some bacon scraps if you want." Atlas lifted his head at the word bacon. Cole almost smiled. That'd make his entire week. Donna disappeared toward the kitchen. Cole wrapped both hands around the coffee mug, letting the warmth sink into his stiff fingers. Outside the window, snow buried the highway inch by inch. The world looked quieter in storms like this, cleaner, like God was trying to hide all the ugly things under white blankets. A man in a brown county jacket entered the diner carrying a leather satchel dusted with snow. He paused near the register and scanned the room. "Cole Barrett?" Cole looked up slowly. That depends. You Cole Barrett? Who's asking? The man approached the booth carefully. Name's Harold Fincher, County Records Office. He opened the satchel and removed a sealed envelope. Been looking for you 3 days now. Cole frowned. Nobody's looked for me in years. Harold hesitated before placing the envelope on the table. This concerns the estate of Nathan Barrett. The name hit harder than Cole expected. Nathan Barrett. His father. The old wound inside him tightened instantly. Atlas raised his head beneath the table, sensing the shift in Cole's breathing. Cole stared at the envelope but didn't touch it. My father's dead? Harold nodded quietly. Passed 2 weeks ago, out near Black Hollow. Cole leaned back slowly. No grief came. No tears. Just emptiness. Nathan Barrett had disappeared from Cole's life nearly 30 years earlier. One day he'd simply been gone. No explanation. No goodbye. Just another man who walked away when things got hard. Cole's mother died believing Nathan abandoned them. Cole had spent most of his adult life believing it too. Guess that makes one less ghost walking around, Cole muttered. Harold shifted uncomfortably. There's a property transfer involved. That got a dry laugh out of Cole. Property? Your father left instructions. Says the land goes directly to next of kin. Cole finally picked up the envelope. Inside was a deed, several folded documents, and one rusted iron key attached to a faded leather tag. Black Hollow Stable Number 3, Cole stared at the papers. A horse stable? About 4 acres outside town, Harold explained. Old structure. Been abandoned years now. That's it? Harold cleared his throat. There may be mineral rights attached, but nobody's confirmed it. Property taxes are overdue. Place needs work. Cole let out a hollow breath. Of course, that sounded exactly right. A lifetime of silence and the old man leaves him a collapsing barn in the middle of nowhere. Donna returned carrying bacon scraps for Atlas. What's all this? She asked casually. Harold answered before Cole could. Looks like Mr. Barrett inherited property. A trucker at the counter overheard. What kind of property? Harold shrugged. Horse stable down in Black Hollow. Laughter rolled through the diner almost instantly. No kidding! That dump's still standing? $1 million inheritance with no roof. Another man chuckled into his coffee. Hell, Cole, you're practically royalty now. Even Donna looked embarrassed for him. Cole folded the papers carefully. Every laugh scraped across his nerves like sandpaper. Atlas rested his head against Cole's boot beneath the table. The dog always knew. Always. Cole finished the last of his coffee in silence. Then he stood. How far is Black Hollow? He asked Harold. 3 hours south if the roads stay open. Cole nodded once. I'll sell it tomorrow. Nobody answered. Outside, the storm had grown heavier. Cole climbed back into the truck and shut the door hard enough to rattle the glass. Snow blew across the parking lot in violent spirals. Atlas climbed beside him quietly. For a long moment, Cole just sat there staring at the rusted key in his hand. The metal felt cold as ice. Nathan Barrett. After all these years. A stable. That was all the man had left him. Not answers. Not apologies. Not family. Just another broken place nobody wanted. Cole shoved the key into the ignition compartment and leaned his head back against the seat. Atlas watched him carefully. You know the funny part? Cole said softly. I used to think he was dead already. The dog remained still. Snow hammered against the windshield. Cole closed his eyes, but sleep never came again. Hours later, as daylight began fading behind the storm clouds, a black SUV rolled slowly past the truck stop parking lot. Its tinted windows paused facing Cole's pickup for several long seconds before continuing down the highway toward Black Hollow. Inside the truck, Atlas suddenly growled. Low, deep, dangerous. Cole opened his eyes immediately. The SUV vanished into the snowfall. Atlas continued staring toward the highway long after it disappeared, and for the first time since hearing about the inheritance, a strange feeling settled into Cole Barrett's chest. Not grief, not anger. Something colder. Something military. The feeling that somewhere ahead of him, buried beneath all that snow and silence, something was waiting, something alive. Cole Barrett drove south before sunrise. The storm followed him the entire way. Snow lashed across the windshield in angry white waves, while the old Ford pickup growled through the mountain roads like a wounded animal refusing to die. Pine forests stretched endlessly along both sides of the highway, dark and heavy beneath fresh snow. The Bitterroot Mountains rose in the distance like frozen giants, watching silently over the valley below. Atlas sat upright on the passenger seat, alert despite the long drive. Every now and then his ears twitched toward the woods. Cole noticed. "You hearing ghosts again?" he muttered. Atlas didn't move. The heater barely worked anymore. Cold air leaked through the truck doors, wrapping around Cole's boots and stiffening his knees. His fingers ached against the steering wheel. The old shoulder injury he'd carried home from his final deployment burned worse in winter weather. Everything burned worse in winter weather. He hadn't slept since the nightmare at the truck stop. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw snow-covered mountains overseas, saw men disappearing into white smoke, heard the sound of radio static right before gunfire erupted. Funny thing about war, it never really ended. It just waited quietly for moments like this. Black Hollow appeared just after noon. The town sat tucked deep between mountain ridges, almost hidden beneath layers of snow and pine trees. Old brick buildings lined the narrow main street. Smoke drifted from chimneys. Christmas lights still hung across storefronts, even though the holidays had passed weeks earlier. Everything looked frozen in time. Cole slowed the truck as he rolled past a faded welcome sign. Black Hollow, Montana. Population 612. Someone had spray-painted beneath it. If you're lost, keep driving. Cole snorted softly. Smartest thing I've seen all day. Atlas gave a low grunt in response. The stable wasn't in town. According to the deed, it sat 4 miles north along an abandoned county road near the old mining ridge. Cole stopped first at the diner Martha Bell owned near Main Street. The place looked older than he was. Snow covered the roof almost entirely, and the windows glowed gold against the gray afternoon. Inside, warmth and conversation wrapped around him instantly. The room smelled like coffee, cinnamon, wet wool, and fried onions. A few locals glanced up when Cole entered with Atlas. Then the room went quiet. Not hostile, curious. Atlas stayed close beside him as Cole approached the counter. A woman in her late 60s stood behind it, drying coffee mugs with a towel. Thick silver hair pulled into a loose bun, sharp blue eyes that missed nothing. "You're Barrett's boy," she said immediately. Cole stopped. "That obvious?" "You've got Nathan's shoulders." Something tightened inside his chest. He ignored it. "Coffee," he said, "and directions to the stable." The woman poured him a cup. "Martha Bell," she said. "Been running this place 32 years. Cole nodded politely. "Cole, I know." Atlas settled beside a heater vent near the counter while snow battered the diner windows outside. Martha studied Cole quietly for a moment. "You look tired. Been a long few years. That dog military?" "Retired." Atlas lifted his head slightly at the word retired, like he disapproved of the label. Martha noticed. Smart eyes. He's smarter than me. That's not hard these days. For the first time since arriving in Montana, Cole almost smiled. Almost. The diner door suddenly opened behind him. Cold air swept through the room. Every conversation stopped. Cole turned. A tall man entered wearing an expensive black coat dusted with snow. Mid-60s. Perfect gray hair. Calm smile. The kind of man who looked more comfortable in a governor's office than a mountain town diner. But his eyes ruined the image. Cold eyes. Measuring eyes. The man noticed Cole instantly. "Well," he said smoothly, "looks like Nathan Barrett's son finally came home." Martha's expression hardened. "Afternoon, Warren." So this was Warren Grady. Cole recognized the type immediately. Men like Grady existed everywhere. Overseas, stateside, expensive watches hiding dirty hands. Grady approached slowly. "I'm sorry about your father," he said. "Nathan and I had disagreements over the years, but he was part of this town." Cole sipped his coffee. "Didn't know I inherited a town historian?" A few locals hid smiles behind coffee mugs. Grady ignored the comment effortlessly. "I understand you inherited the Ridge stable." Cole's eyes narrowed slightly. "That information travels fast. In towns this size, everything does." Atlas suddenly stood, the dog's ears pinned backward. A low growl vibrated from deep in his chest. The entire diner heard it. Grady glanced down at Atlas calmly. Well-trained animal. Cole didn't miss the slight tension in the man's voice. "He usually likes people," Cole said quietly. Martha snorted softly behind the counter. Grady reached inside his coat and removed a business card. "If you're interested in selling the property, I'd be happy to make an offer immediately. Cash." Cole stared at him. "You haven't even seen the place with me yet." "No need." Grady smiled. "I know exactly what's out there." Something about the way he said it made the room colder. "How much?" Cole asked. Martha shot him a warning look. Grady named a number. $25,000. The diner fell silent again. Cole blinked once. For a collapsing stable, in the middle of nowhere, it was far too much money. Even he knew that. "Why?" Cole asked. Grady folded his gloves carefully. "Development opportunity. Mining access roads nearby. Easier to consolidate land ownership now than later." Cole studied him. The explanation sounded prepared. Too prepared. Atlas growled again. Grady looked at the dog this time with open dislike. "Animals sense tension," he said lightly. "No," Martha said from behind the counter. "Dogs sense character." The room went very still. Grady's smile thinned slightly. Then it returned. "Well," he said, "think about the offer, Mr. Barrett. A stable can become an expensive burden in winter." He placed the business card on the counter. Then he left. The bell above the diner door jingled softly as snow swallowed him outside. Atlas continued staring at the door long after it shut. Martha waited until Grady's SUV disappeared down Main Street before speaking. "Don't sell him that land." Cole looked at her. "You know something I don't?" "Everybody in this town knows something they don't talk about." "That's not an answer." "No." Martha refilled his coffee. "It's a warning." Cole rubbed tired eyes. "Lady, I'm sleeping in my truck. If somebody wants to overpay me for a rotten horse stable, I'm listening." Martha leaned closer. "Warren Grady's been trying to buy that property for 15 years. Cole frowned. "Why?" "He says development. Nathan said otherwise." There it was again. Nathan. His father's name lingering around this town like unfinished business. Cole looked out the window toward the falling snow. What kind of man was he? Martha took longer answering that than he expected. "A lonely one," she said finally, "but not weak." Something about those words unsettled him more than he wanted to admit. An hour later, Cole drove north toward the property. The county road quickly turned rough beneath deep snow and old ice. Pines crowded tightly around both sides of the truck, their branches bending low beneath the storm. Abandoned railroad tracks appeared beside the road briefly before vanishing beneath snowdrifts. Atlas grew increasingly restless the farther they drove. Then Cole saw it. The stable. It sat alone in the white valley beneath towering mountains, weathered wood dark against the snow. One side of the roof sagged badly. Wind pushed through broken upper windows. Old fencing leaned half-buried nearby like skeleton bones sticking from the earth. The place looked abandoned by time itself. Cole killed the engine. Silence rushed in instantly. No traffic. No voices. Only wind. Atlas stared toward the stable without moving. Cole stepped out into knee-deep snow and looked around slowly. Frozen pasture stretched endlessly behind the building toward dense pine forest climbing the mountainside. Beyond that sat old mining roads carved into the cliffs decades earlier. The whole valley felt isolated, hidden, like something the world forgot on purpose. Cole approached the stable carefully. The old doors groaned in the wind. A faded horseshoe still hung above the entrance. Nathan Barrett's stable. The inheritance. The final thing his father left behind. Cole unlocked the side entrance with the rusted iron key. The lock clicked immediately, as though someone had used it recently. That thought stopped him cold. Atlas suddenly pushed past him into the stable. The dog moved fast despite his age, nails scraping against old wooden floors inside. "Atlas!" No response. Cole stepped inside after him. Dust and cold wrapped around him instantly. The stable interior stretched deep into shadows. Horse stalls lined both sides of the building. Old ranch tools hung from walls. Snow leaked through holes in the roof in pale, drifting flakes. And Atlas wasn't exploring. He stood perfectly still near the far south wall, watching, listening, every muscle tense. Cole walked toward him slowly. "What is it?" Atlas didn't look away from the wall. Then, very softly, the old military dog growled. Outside, somewhere beyond the stable, an engine echoed faintly through the valley. Cole turned sharply toward the sound. Headlights appeared briefly between distant pine trees, watching the stable from the road, then disappearing back into the storm. Cole stood frozen near the stable entrance long after the headlights vanished behind the trees. Atlas remained beside the south wall, growling low beneath his breath. Not barking. Warning. The old SEAL instincts Cole had spent years trying to bury slowly crawled back to life inside him. Observation, positioning, movement, threat assessment. He hated how fast it returned. War trained your body to survive long after your mind wanted peace. Cole stepped back toward the stable doorway and peered into the white valley. Snow blew sideways through the fading afternoon light, erasing tire tracks almost instantly. No sound now, no engine, nothing. But someone had been there, watching. Atlas suddenly scratched hard against the wooden wall behind him. Cole turned. The dog clawed furiously at the baseboards of the horse stall nearest the south corner of the stable. Dust and wood splinters scattered across the floor. "Hey," Cole said sharply. Atlas ignored him. The scratching intensified. "Atlas!" Still nothing. Cole walked over carefully. The stall itself looked ancient. Old cedar planks darkened by decades of weather and horse sweat. Rusted hooks hung from beams overhead. A broken lantern swayed slightly in the draft coming through the roof. Atlas kept digging at the lower wall. Cole crouched beside him. "What the hell's gotten into you?" The dog pressed his nose against the boards, and whined softly now, pacing in tight circles before returning to scratch again. Cole ran his fingers along the wood. Solid. No gaps. No obvious compartment. Still, Atlas wouldn't stop, and over the years Cole had learned something simple about military dogs. When they fixated on something, there was usually a reason. The storm worsened by nightfall. Wind screamed across the valley hard enough to shake the stable walls. Snow poured through holes in the roof, dusting the floor in pale white streaks. Cole found an old generator in a side storage room, but it was dead from years of neglect. No electricity, no heat except what he could build himself. He found chopped wood stacked beneath a tarp behind the stable and managed to get a small fire burning inside an old cast-iron stove near the tack room. Atlas finally settled near the flames, though he kept glancing toward the south wall every few minutes. Cole sat on an overturned feed bucket sipping lukewarm canned soup heated over the stove. The stable groaned around them. He hated places like this, not because they were old, because silence always gave memories room to breathe. The fire crackled softly. Outside, wind moaned through the mountain valley, and somewhere deep inside his head, another sound slowly returned. Rotor blades, gunfire, snow crunching beneath combat boots. Cole squeezed his eyes shut hard. Afghanistan, Kunar Province, winter deployment. He remembered the mountains most clearly. Not the killing, the cold. God, the cold. The kind that climbed inside your bones and stayed there forever. He saw Corporal Reese bleeding into the snow after the convoy ambush, heard men screaming over broken radios, saw the white mountains swallowing smoke and bodies alike. Then Atlas nudged his hand sharply. Cole opened his eyes immediately. The dog sat upright now, alert, listening. Cole's breathing slowed. "Yeah," he muttered quietly. "I hear it too." At first he thought it was wind. Then he realized it wasn't. An engine. Far away. Cole stood slowly and moved toward the stable doors. Atlas followed instantly. Headlights drifted between trees near the road again. Not approaching. Watching. The same SUV. Cole remained motionless in the shadows. The vehicle idled there for almost 30 seconds before disappearing once more into the storm. Atlas growled again, this time louder. Cole shut the stable doors carefully and slid an old iron bar through the handles. "Guess Warren Grady's real interested in horse property," he muttered. The storm trapped them there through the night. By morning, snowdrifts buried half the stable entrance. Cole stepped outside just after sunrise into a world of white silence. The mountains surrounding Black Hollow glowed pale blue beneath weak winter light. Beautiful. Deadly. The stable looked even worse in daylight. Sagging roof, cracked support beams, collapsed fencing buried beneath snow. A place abandoned by everyone except memory. Atlas immediately trotted back inside toward the south stall and started scratching again. Harder this time. Cole followed him with growing irritation. "You're gonna tear your paws open." Atlas barked once sharply without looking back. Cole stopped. Military dogs almost never barked without reason. He crouched beside the wall again. This time he noticed something strange. The boards near the bottom were newer. Not new exactly, but newer than the rest. Different nails, too. Cole ran his fingers along the wood grain carefully. Somebody had replaced this section years ago. Atlas pressed his nose against one corner and whined. Cole stood slowly. "All right," he muttered. "Let's see what's got your attention." He searched the stable until he found an old pry bar hanging from a tool rack. Rust coated half the metal. Returning to the stall, he wedged the bar between the boards and pulled hard. The wood groaned. One plank cracked loose immediately. Dust exploded outward. Atlas backed away, ears pinned alert. Cole pried another board free, then another. Behind them sat darkness, a hollow space inside the wall. Cole frowned. Well now. Atlas pushed forward instantly, trying to shove his muzzle into the opening. Easy! Cole widened the gap enough to shine his flashlight inside. The beam revealed old burlap sacks, a rusted lantern, wooden crates, and something else. Markings burned into the back support beam. Cole's breath caught. Military markings. He knew them immediately. Not official Navy symbols. Logistics markers. Covert transport identifiers used overseas during classified supply operations. His stomach tightened. What the hell? He stepped closer. The burned symbols matched ones he'd seen years earlier in Afghanistan, near unauthorized weapons caches hidden inside abandoned compounds. Atlas suddenly stiffened. The dog's ears snapped toward the stable entrance. Cole heard it too, crunching snow outside. Footsteps. Instantly, every nerve inside him sharpened. Cole killed the flashlight. Silence. The footsteps stopped outside the stable doors. Atlas lowered himself defensively beside Cole without making a sound. Professional. Disciplined. Old habits. Cole slowly drew the combat knife from his belt. Wind rattled the roof overhead. The footsteps resumed briefly, then faded away again. A minute later, an engine started somewhere beyond the trees, driving off. Cole waited another full minute before breathing normally again. Atlas remained tense. Cole looked back at the hidden compartment inside the wall, then at the military symbols burned into the beam. Suddenly, the stable didn't feel abandoned anymore. It felt hidden, like someone built it to keep secrets alive. Cole carefully removed more boards from the wall throughout the afternoon, while snow continued falling outside. Most of the hidden space contained junk. Old horse tack, rotted blankets, broken lanterns. But deeper inside, tucked behind stacked crates, he found something wrapped tightly in oilcloth. Long, rectangular, heavy. Atlas immediately sat beside it, tail still, watching Cole. Cole unwrapped the bundle carefully. Inside sat an old metal ammunition case. Military issue. No lock. No markings outside except one faded word scratched across the lid. Barrett. His father's name. Cole stared at it for a very long time. Outside, wind hammered the stable walls again. Atlas pressed closer beside him. Cole slowly opened the lid. Inside lay old cassette tapes, military journals wrapped in plastic, several photographs, and resting on top of everything else, a rusted Navy SEAL trident. Cole froze. His father had never talked about military service. Not once. As far as Cole knew, Nathan Barrett had been nothing more than a horse trainer who drank too much and disappeared one day without explanation. But the trident sitting in his hands told a different story entirely. Atlas whined softly. Cole picked up one of the photographs. It showed Nathan Barrett standing beside younger men in camouflage near mountain terrain covered in snow. One man's face had been scratched violently out of the picture. Another photo showed old mining tunnels beneath Black Hollow. Military crates, armed men, dates written across the bottom. Cole's pulse began pounding harder. Then he opened the first journal. The handwriting inside was rough but steady, and the very first sentence stopped his breathing cold. If anything happens to me, they cannot let Warren Grady find this stable. Outside, somewhere beyond the mountains of Black Hollow, thunder rolled through the snowstorm. And beside Cole, Atlas began growling again. The sound vibrated low through the old dog's chest as snow slammed against the stable walls. Wind pushed through the broken roof overhead, scattering dust and frost across the floorboards. Cole slowly lowered the journal. His pulse thudded heavily in his ears. If anything happens to me, they cannot let Warren Grady find this stable. The sentence repeated itself inside his head. Not should not. Cannot. Atlas remained rigid beside the hidden compartment, eyes locked toward the stable entrance. Cole listened carefully. Nothing now except the storm. Still, every instinct inside him screamed that someone out there knew exactly what he had found. He grabbed the ammunition case and carried it quickly toward the old tack room near the stove. Atlas followed close behind, limping slightly, but refusing to leave Cole's side. The tack room was barely insulated from the cold, but it felt safer than the wide-open stable floor. Cole pushed an old cabinet against the door out of habit more than necessity. Then he sat beside the fire. The journals rested heavily in his lap. Atlas curled near the stove but kept lifting his head toward every sound outside. Cole picked up one of the cassette tapes. A faded strip of masking tape across the front read, December 14th, 1993, his father's handwriting. Cole stared at it for a long time. He suddenly realized something strange. Nathan Barrett had hidden these things carefully, protected them, preserved them. A man planning to abandon his family wouldn't do that. Would he? Cole rubbed his jaw slowly. No, he muttered quietly. Doesn't make sense. Atlas looked up at his voice. Cole picked up the first journal instead. The leather cover cracked softly as he opened it near the firelight. The pages smelled faintly of smoke, dust, and old paper. Nathan Barrett's handwriting filled every page. Notebooks of observations, dates, names, license plates, coordinates. Some entries were short, others stretched across entire pages. Cole started reading. January 7th, 1988. Saw Grady trucks moving through the North Quarry again after midnight. Covered cargo. No mining permits filed. Sheriff pretending not to notice. Cole frowned. He turned another page. March 18th, 1989. The men unloading crates are not miners. Military posture. Weapons training. One of them recognized me from overseas and warned me to stay quiet. Cole's stomach tightened. Overseas. Nathan had military connections after all. Atlas suddenly shifted closer beside him as another hard gust shook the stable. Cole kept reading. June 2nd, 1990. The tunnels under Black Hollow are bigger than anyone knows. They're using abandoned mining routes to move shipments through Canada. Grady's making millions. Cole stared into the fire. His father had been investigating Warren Grady for years, not randomly, methodically, like a man running surveillance. The realization unsettled him deeply. Because Cole recognized the discipline in the journals, military discipline. His father hadn't been some drunken rancher stumbling into trouble. Nathan Barrett had operated like someone trained, someone careful, someone hunted. The next entry made Cole's breath catch. October 11th, 1991. Saw chemical barrels unloaded near Tunnel 4, markings scratched off. Smell burned my throat from 30 feet away. Creek water downstream already turning black near the rocks. Cole looked up slowly. The valley. The old mining roads. The stable. Everything suddenly felt connected somehow. Atlas raised his head again. The dog's ears twitched sharply. Cole heard it too this time. A vehicle, closer than before. Headlights flashed briefly through cracks in the stable walls, then stopped, engine idling outside. Cole instantly killed the lantern flame beside him. Darkness swallowed the tack room. Atlas stood silently, focused. The vehicle remained outside for nearly a minute. Then a car door opened, footsteps crunching slowly through snow. Cole reached automatically for the combat knife at his belt. His breathing slowed. Steady now. Controlled. Old instincts returning. Atlas moved closer beside him without a sound. The footsteps circled the stable once, paused near the south wall, then slowly moved away again. Another car door slammed. The engine faded back toward the road. Cole remained motionless long after the sound disappeared. Finally, he exhaled quietly. "Somebody's nervous," he whispered. Atlas nudged his hand gently. Cole relit the lantern. The fire crackled weakly beside them. He looked down at the journals again, then at the photographs inside the ammunition case. One picture in particular caught his attention now. Nathan Barrett standing beside several men outside a military tent somewhere overseas. Everyone smiling except Nathan, and scratched violently from the photograph. Warren Grady, younger, but unmistakable. Cole stared hard at the image. "What were you into, old man?" He turned the photograph over. On the back, Nathan had written only 3 words. "He chose money." Cole leaned back slowly. The stable groaned again, shining tama around them. Snowstorm winds screamed across the valley. Atlas returned to the hidden compartment and sat beside it stubbornly, guarding it. Cole watched the old dog for a moment. "You knew there was something there, didn't you?" Atlas blinked once. Cole shook his head. "Smartest partner I ever had." For the first time in years, saying the word partner hurt less than expected. The fire burned low by midnight. Cole finally inserted one of the cassette tapes into an old portable player he found buried inside the storage cabinet. The batteries barely worked. Static crackled loudly before a man's voice emerged. Nathan Barrett. Older, tired, but calm. "If you're hearing this, then either I'm dead, or Warren Grady finally got desperate enough to come looking." Cole froze. Hearing his father's voice after decades felt like someone reopening an old wound with bare hands. Static hissed softly through the speaker. Nathan continued, "I don't know if this tape reaches my son one day. Maybe it won't. Maybe Cole grows up hating me. Truth is, that might be safer." Cole's throat tightened unexpectedly. Outside, snow hammered the roof. I tried leaving Black Hollow twice. Grady followed both times. Men like him don't let witnesses walk away clean. By the time I understood what he'd built under this valley, it was already too late. Cole leaned closer to the recorder. Atlas quietly returned to his side. "The tunnels aren't abandoned mines anymore. They're transport routes. Weapons first, chemicals later, government contracts. Missing inventory, men disappearing after asking questions. I kept records of all of it." The tape crackled badly. Then Nathan's voice lowered. "If anything happens to me, Cole needs to stay far away from this place." Cole shut his eyes briefly. That sentence hurt worse than anger somehow, because it sounded like concern. Real concern, not abandonment. The tape continued. "I told everyone I was no good. Drunk. Bitter. Easier that way. Easier for them to believe I ran my family off than admit what's happening here. If Grady thought I still cared about my son, he would have used that." Cole stared into the fire. Memories returned suddenly. Nathan teaching him to saddle horses. Nathan laughing once while fixing fence posts. Nathan disappearing for days at a time afterward. Then drinking more. Getting quieter. Colder. As if carrying something too heavy to explain. Atlas rested his head against Cole's knee. The tape recorder hissed softly. "I hope someday he understands why I stayed away." Cole swallowed hard. Because suddenly he wasn't sure what he believed anymore. The stable creaked violently as another blast of wind struck the roof. Somewhere above them, old beams groaned under the storm. Atlas abruptly stood again, growling. Cole heard it immediately afterward, a loud metallic clang outside. Not wind, something hitting the stable doors, then silence. Cole grabbed the lantern and knife. Atlas moved beside him instantly. Together they stepped out onto the dark stable floor. Snow blew through broken roof panels overhead like drifting ash. Cole moved carefully between horse stalls. Another clang echoed from outside. Then footsteps running through snow. Fast, retreating. Cole reached the entrance and shoved the doors open. Freezing wind exploded into the stable. The valley beyond lay buried beneath swirling snow and darkness. No vehicle visible now. No people. Only fresh boot prints disappearing toward the tree line near the road. Atlas barked once sharply. Then he bolted forward into the storm. "Atlas!" The dog disappeared into the snow. Cole cursed and ran after him. Cold air sliced into his lungs instantly. The flashlight beam bounced wildly across the white valley while snow whipped through the trees. Then Atlas stopped near the fence line, growling. Cole caught up beside him. Half buried in the snow sat something black. A leather glove. Fresh, still warm. Cole slowly picked it up. Inside the wrist lining was a stitched logo. Grady Excavation Services. Atlas stared toward the distant woods, and somewhere out there beyond the storm, hidden among the mountains of Black Hollow, somebody was no longer just watching them. Somebody was preparing to move. Cole stood in the snow holding the leather glove while the wind tore across the valley around him. Atlas remained perfectly still beside the fence line, staring into the trees. Waiting. The old German shepherd's breath drifted into the darkness in pale clouds. Cole looked down at the stitched logo again. Grady Excavation Services. Not a coincidence anymore. Not paranoia. Not PTSD. Somebody had come to the stable in the middle of a blizzard searching for something hidden inside his father's walls. And now Cole understood something that tightened every muscle in his body. Nathan Barrett had been afraid for a reason. "Come on," Cole muttered quietly. Atlas followed him back toward the stable through knee-deep snow. The storm worsened after midnight. Wind screamed across the roof hard enough to shake loose old boards overhead. Snow drifted through cracks in the walls, slowly covering sections of the stable floor in white powder. Inside the tack room, the fire burned low and orange. Cole sat beside it with the journals spread around him, while Atlas slept nearby, though one ear remained lifted toward the stable entrance, always listening. Cole envied that kind of loyalty. He inserted another cassette tape into the old recorder. Static crackled. Then Nathan Barrett's voice returned from the dead. "If you found the compartment, then Atlas was right." Cole froze. His eyes slowly lifted toward the dog. Atlas opened one eye sleepily near the stove. Cole stared at him in disbelief. "Atlas?" The tape hissed softly. "I know it sounds crazy, son, but dogs know things before people do. Military handlers learn that fast. Atlas's father worked with me overseas years ago. Smart bloodline. Loyal bloodline." Cole leaned forward slowly. His father knew about Atlas. "How?" Nathan coughed somewhere on the recording before continuing. "If you're listening to this, then it means I failed to keep you away from Black Hollow. God help me, I hoped you'd never come back here." The fire popped sharply. Outside, thunder rolled through the mountains again. Cole rubbed a hand across his face. The tape continued. "Warren Grady wasn't always like this. We served together once. Long before the valley. Long before the tunnels. Back then he still believed in something besides money." Cole's eyes narrowed. Served together. Nathan Barrett had military history after all. Not just history. Secrets. "I trusted him once," Nathan said quietly. "Biggest mistake of my life." The tape crackled badly for a moment. Then Nathan's voice lowered further. "The government shut down operations overseas after the Cold War. But men like Warren found new buyers. Weapons disappear easy in wartime. Easier when everyone's already lying." Cole felt a cold heaviness settle in his stomach. Arms trafficking, smuggling routes, the old mining tunnels beneath Black Hollow. Suddenly, the military markings inside the hidden compartment made terrible sense. Nathan continued speaking. At first it was guns, then chemicals, waste disposal contracts, fake transport manifests. The valley became a graveyard nobody checked because the money kept flowing. Atlas lifted his head now, watching Cole closely. Cole realized his own breathing had changed. Shorter, faster, the old pressure building behind his ribs again. The same pressure that always came before memories, before panic. He stood abruptly and walked out onto the dark stable floor. Cold air hit him immediately. The flashlight beam bounced across horse stalls and hanging chains while the storm battered the building overhead. Breathe. Just breathe. But the tape had cracked something open inside him. War never stayed buried. Not really. He gripped the edge of a stall until his knuckles whitened. Then Afghanistan returned all at once. Snow-covered mountain roads, burning Humvees, bodies frozen in ravines. The convoy ambush that ended his career. Cole could still hear Sergeant Miller screaming over the radio after the second explosion hit. Could still smell diesel fuel burning in snow. Could still see the little Afghan village buried beneath smoke afterward. Atlas approached slowly beside him. Silent, gentle. Cole shut his eyes hard. I'm all right. The lie sounded weak even to him. Atlas pressed against his leg. Steady pressure, grounding him. That was what military dogs were trained for sometimes. Not just explosives, not just tracking. Grounding handlers during combat stress episodes, pulling them back before panic swallowed them whole. Cole lowered himself onto an overturned bucket. Atlas sat directly in front of him, watching, waiting. You know what the worst part is? Cole whispered after a while. You spend your whole life thinking combat changes you into something stronger. The dog remained still. But it doesn't. Cole stared into the dark stable. It just teaches you how much damage a person can carry before they finally break. The storm moaned through the valley. Atlas slowly rested his head on Cole's knee. And for the first time in years, Cole let the silence happen instead of fighting it. Eventually, he returned to the recorder. Nathan's voice filled the tack room again. I tried leaving with your mother once. Cole's chest tightened immediately. Grady threatened to burn the stable down with both of you inside. The words hit like a punch. Cole stopped breathing for a second. Your mother never knew the full truth. I couldn't tell her. Couldn't risk it. So I became the villain instead. Easier for everyone to hate me than bury you. Cole stared blankly at the recorder. His entire childhood suddenly shifted beneath his feet. Nathan Barrett hadn't abandoned them. He'd pushed them away, protected them. The realization hurt far worse, because anger would have been easier. The tape crackled softly. If you're hearing this now, son, then I'm sorry. I know you probably hate me. Truth is, I hated myself enough for both of us already. Cole swallowed hard. Atlas whined quietly beside him. Nathan continued. There's more evidence hidden somewhere under the stable. I moved pieces over the years after Grady's men started searching. If they realize you found the journals, they'll come hard and fast. Don't trust the sheriff. Don't trust county officials. Most of them belong to Warren now. The recorder hissed again. Then Nathan said something that made Cole's blood run cold. And if you see the black SUV, run. At that exact moment, headlights swept across the stable windows. Cole jerked upright instantly. Atlas exploded into barking. The black SUV rolled slowly past the stable entrance outside. Much closer this time. The engine stopped. Doors opened. More than one. Cole killed the lantern immediately. Darkness swallowed the room. Atlas growled viciously now. Cole drew his combat knife and moved silently toward the stable floor. Snow blew through the cracks overhead while footsteps approached outside. 3 men, maybe 4. Professional spacing. Not random. Not drunk locals. Hunters. Cole crouched behind a stall divider while Atlas positioned himself beside the entrance shadows. The stable doors rattled once, then again harder. A voice called out through the storm. "Mr. Barrett!" Cole remained silent. Another voice laughed softly outside. "Warren Grady just wants to talk." Atlas's growl deepened. The men tried the doors again. Locked. Cole's pulse slowed instead of rising. That happened sometimes during danger. Fear disappeared. Training took over. He scanned the stable automatically. Possible exits, improvised weapons, angles, distance to the truck. The storm outside masked sound well. Good for ambushes, bad for survival. One of the men outside slammed against the doors harder. Old hinges groaned. "Open up!" Atlas barked once sharply. The men outside paused immediately. "Dogs inside," someone muttered. Another voice answered, "Deal with it if it comes through." Cole's expression hardened instantly. Atlas heard it too. The old shepherd's body lowered slightly into attack posture. Then something unexpected happened. Headlights suddenly appeared from the road behind the SUV. Another vehicle approaching fast through the storm. The men outside cursed. A truck horn blasted loudly. Then an older voice shouted through the wind. "You boys lost?" Silence. Cole carefully peered through a crack in the stable wall. An old snowplow truck had stopped near the road. Behind the wheel sat a broad-shouldered older man wearing a fur-lined coat and wool cap. Earl Dawson, the mechanic from town. Cole recognized him from the diner. The men near the SUV hesitated. The situation had changed. Too visible now. One of them spat into the snow. "We'll come back later." The SUV doors slammed. Moments later, both vehicles disappeared into the storm. Cole stayed motionless another full minute before opening the stable doors cautiously. Earl Dawson climbed down from the plow truck slowly. Snow swirled around him beneath the headlights. "You all right in there?" the old mechanic asked. Cole nodded once. Earl's eyes drifted toward the tire tracks disappearing down the road. "Told Martha this place would wake ghosts eventually." Cole studied him carefully. "You know who they were?" Earl gave a tired sigh. "In Black Hollow? Everybody knows who they were." The old mechanic looked toward the stable, then toward Atlas standing beside Cole. His weathered face tightened slightly. "That your military dog?" "Yeah." "Good." Earl nodded toward the valley. "You're gonna need him." Cole stepped closer. "What did my father get involved in out here?" Earl stared into the storm for several long seconds before answering. "The kind of thing decent men regret surviving." Then he climbed back into the snowplow. As the truck pulled away into the darkness, Cole looked back toward the stable behind him. The old building no longer felt abandoned. It felt occupied. By secrets. By memories. By a war that never truly ended. And deep beneath the snow-covered valley of Black Hollow, something terrible was still buried. Waiting. Morning came slow and gray over the mountains. The storm had finally weakened during the night, leaving the valley buried beneath fresh snow that reached halfway up the stable doors. Pine branches sagged heavily under the weight of ice and white powder. Smoke drifted from distant chimneys in town far below the ridge. But the stable itself felt colder now, not from winter, from knowing. Cole stood near the south wall compartment, while weak sunlight filtered through cracks in the roof. The journals and cassette tapes sat spread across an old feed table beside him. Atlas paced restlessly nearby. The old dog hadn't truly relaxed once since arriving in Black Hollow. Neither had Cole. He looked down again at the photograph of Warren Grady standing beside Nathan Barrett overseas decades earlier. Partners once, enemies later. Somewhere between those two versions of the men, everything had collapsed. Cole rubbed tired eyes. His body ached from sleeping on hard floors and carrying tension through the night. PTSD exhaustion was different than normal exhaustion. It wasn't just fatigue. It was vigilance. The inability to stop scanning shadows even when your body begged for rest. Atlas suddenly froze near the stable entrance, ears forward. Cole looked up immediately. An engine approached from the valley road. Not the black SUV this time. A smaller vehicle. Moments later, an old green Jeep pulled carefully into the snow-covered yard outside the stable. A woman stepped out, wearing a heavy winter coat and wool gloves, late 40s. Dark hair tied back beneath a knitted cap. Confident posture. Military posture. Atlas barked once, but didn't growl. Interesting. The woman noticed the dog immediately. "Well," she called through the cold air, "that explains the tracks." Cole stepped outside carefully. "Can I help you?" She looked him over calmly. "You're Cole Barrett." Again, not a question. "That depends who's asking." "Hannah Reeves." She nodded toward the dog. "Martha Bell called me this morning. Said a retired military shepherd was limping around an abandoned stable with an armed stranger." Cole glanced at Atlas. "He's fine." Hannah raised one eyebrow. "The blood in the snow says otherwise." Cole looked down. Fresh spots of blood dotted the snow near the stable entrance. Atlas's paws, from scratching at the wall for hours. The dog shifted uncomfortably when Hannah approached, but he didn't back away. "You Army?" Cole asked quietly. "Medic Corps." She crouched beside Atlas carefully. "Afghanistan. 2 tours." Cole stared at her for a moment. There was something familiar about people who'd seen combat. A kind of quietness behind the eyes. Not sadness. Recognition. Hannah gently lifted Atlas's front paw. The old dog tolerated it reluctantly. "These are torn open pretty bad," she said. "He's been digging at something." Cole didn't answer immediately. Hannah noticed the hesitation. Then she looked toward the stable. "What exactly did your father leave you out here?" Good question. Cole wasn't sure anymore. Inside the stable, Hannah cleaned Atlas's paws while sitting near the stove. Her medical bag looked worn from years of use. Atlas watched her carefully the entire time, but never snapped once. "You two were together overseas?" Hannah asked while wrapping bandages. Cole nodded. 7 years. "He's old for active duty. So am I." That earned the smallest smile from her. Outside, the valley remained silent beneath the snow. Too silent. Cole kept glancing toward the road. Hannah noticed. "You expecting trouble?" "Already had some." He told her about the SUV, the men outside during the storm, the glove with Grady's company logo. Hannah's expression darkened slightly. "That doesn't surprise me." "You know Grady?" "Everybody here knows Grady." She tightened Atlas's bandage gently. "Some people fear him more than winter." Cole looked toward the journals. "My father was investigating him." "I know." Cole stared at her sharply. Hannah finished wrapping Atlas's paw before answering. "Nathan brought injured horses to my clinic sometimes." Her voice lowered slightly. "Near the end, he started bringing photographs, too." Cole felt his pulse quicken. "Photographs of what?" "Chemical barrels near the quarry. Sick cattle. Dead fish in the river." Hannah stood slowly. Things nobody wanted to talk about. Cole walked toward the hidden compartment. "You ever hear about tunnels under the valley?" Hannah went still. Then she sighed quietly. "God, you know about them?" Rumors. She looked uneasy now. Old mining routes mostly collapsed decades ago. But not all of them. No. Cole showed her the journals, the photographs, the military markings burned into the beams. Hannah read several pages silently. The color slowly drained from her face. "This isn't just illegal dumping," she whispered. "No." The stable suddenly felt even colder somehow. Atlas rose stiffly from beside the stove and walked back toward the south wall. Then he began growling again. Not at the wall this time, at the stable doors. Cole heard it too, snow crunching outside. More than one person. Hannah looked toward him immediately. "You armed?" Cole nodded once. The footsteps approached quickly this time. No attempt at stealth. The stable doors burst open violently. 3 men entered through blowing snow, heavy coats, work boots, faces hidden beneath winter masks. One carried a crowbar. Another held a flashlight. The third pointed directly at Cole. "Step away from the table." Atlas exploded into barking instantly. Cole moved automatically. Training erased hesitation. He shoved Hannah behind the feed table just as the first man lunged forward. The stable erupted into chaos. The crowbar swung toward Cole's head. Cole blocked hard with his forearm and drove his shoulder into the attacker's chest, slamming him against a horse stall hard enough to crack old wood. Atlas launched himself at the second man before he could react. The shepherd hit him like a missile. The flashlight flew across the stable floor. The man screamed as Atlas locked onto his arm. The third attacker charged toward the journals. Cole intercepted him halfway. Years of combat training returned all at once. Fast, precise, terrifying. Cole slammed the attacker into a support beam and ripped the knife from his gloved hand. The man stumbled backward. Then something terrible happened. A sudden sharp cry tore through the stable. "Atlas!" Cole turned instantly. The second attacker had pulled a hunting knife. Blood spread dark across Atlas's side. The old shepherd still held onto the man's arm despite the injury. Rage exploded through Cole so fast it almost blinded him. He hit the attacker with brutal force, driving him backward into the stable wall. The remaining men panicked immediately. "Go!" They fled into the storm moments later, disappearing toward the road. Cole dropped beside Atlas instantly. Blood soaked the dog's fur near his ribs. "Hey! Hey!" Atlas tried standing, collapsed again. Hannah rushed over and pressed both hands against the wound. "We need to move now." Cole's chest tightened painfully. Not Atlas, not him. The old dog looked up at Cole through heavy breathing, still trying to rise despite the blood loss. "You stubborn old bastard," Cole whispered shakily. Outside, snow continued falling across the valley. Cole carried Atlas through the storm toward Hannah's jeep, wrapped in old blankets from the stable. The dog's blood stained the snow behind them. And for the first time in years, real fear settled deep inside Cole Barrett's chest. Not fear for himself. Fear of losing the last living thing that had never abandoned him. Hannah drove fast down the mountain roads while snow hammered the windshield. Atlas lay across the back seat, breathing hard, his head resting against Cole's lap. Cole kept pressure on the wound the entire drive. "It's all right," he whispered repeatedly. Atlas's eyes never left him. The veterinary clinic sat near the edge of town beside a frozen creek and abandoned grain silos. Hannah rushed them inside through the back entrance. Warm light flooded over them. Medical equipment, kennels, the smell of antiseptic and cedarwood. Cole carried Atlas onto the operating table carefully. Hannah immediately went to work. Military efficiency. No wasted motion. "He's lost a lot of blood," she said quietly. Cole remained beside the table. Atlas whimpered once when Hannah cleaned the wound. Cole gently placed one hand against the dog's neck. "You're all right, partner." Hannah glanced at him briefly. Most military dogs don't stay bonded this long after retirement. Cole stared at Atlas. He saved my life overseas. The old shepherd weakly thumped his tail once. Cole swallowed hard. No, he corrected quietly. More than once. Hours later, night settled over Black Hollow again. Atlas finally slept beneath warm blankets near the clinic fireplace after surgery. Alive. Weak. But alive. Cole sat alone nearby, holding Nathan Barrett's journal, while snow drifted softly outside the windows. Then Hannah emerged from the back room, carrying something wrapped in cloth. "I found this lodged inside Atlas's vest harness," she said. Cole frowned. "I didn't put anything there." Hannah unfolded the cloth carefully. Inside sat a small, rusted brass key, and attached to it, another leather tag. Tunnel 4. Cole stared at it silently, then slowly looked back toward the mountains beyond town, toward the stable, toward the valley hiding beneath the snow. Somewhere out there, Nathan Barrett had left another trail waiting to be followed, and now Warren Grady knew Cole was following it. Snow fell softly over Black Hollow through the early morning darkness, covering rooftops, roads, and frozen fields beneath another layer of white silence. The town looked peaceful from the outside, but Cole Barrett had spent enough years in war zones to understand something dangerous about quiet places. Sometimes silence meant fear. The veterinary clinic smelled like antiseptic, cedarwood, and burnt coffee. Weak firelight flickered across the walls while Atlas slept near the stone fireplace wrapped in blankets. The old German shepherd's breathing had steadied overnight. Still alive. Still fighting. Cole sat alone at the wooden table nearby, staring at the brass key Hannah had found hidden inside Atlas's old tactical harness. Tunnel 4. The leather tag swung gently between his fingers. Hannah emerged from the back room carrying 2 steaming mugs of coffee. Her dark hair was tied loosely now, exhaustion visible beneath her eyes. "You should sleep," she said quietly. Cole accepted the mug. "Can't. That obvious? Military habit?" Hannah sat across from him. "No," she said softly. "That's not military anymore. That's survival." Cole looked down into his coffee. Outside the windows, snow drifted past beneath pale streetlights. "I keep hearing his voice," Cole admitted after a long silence. "Nathan's?" He nodded. "All these years I thought he walked away from us because he didn't care." Cole rubbed tired hands together. "Turns out, he was trying to keep us alive." Hannah studied him quietly. "That kind of truth changes a person." "Yeah." The fire cracked softly nearby. Atlas stirred slightly in his sleep. Cole looked toward him immediately. Hannah noticed. "You really love that dog." The words caught him off guard. Love wasn't something men like Cole talked about easily. Not after war. Not after divorce. Not after years alone. But Atlas had crossed deserts beside him, slept beside him through panic attacks, pulled him out of darkness more times than Cole could count. "He's all I got left," Cole said finally. Hannah's expression softened slightly. "No," she said gently. "I think he's the reason you're still here." That hit harder than expected. Cole looked away toward the falling snow outside. By noon, Atlas was stubbornly trying to stand again. "You're not dying today, huh?" Cole muttered as the shepherd limped across the clinic floor. Atlas ignored the comment and nudged the brass key with his nose. Hannah folded her arms. "That dog knows exactly what that belongs to." Cole nodded slowly. "Tunnels." Neither of them liked the sound of the word. Still, 2 hours later they drove north toward the stable together. The storm had finally broken, revealing sharp blue skies over the Bitterroot Mountains. Sunlight reflected off endless snowfields so brightly it hurt the eyes. Black Hollow sat buried quietly beneath winter light, while smoke rose lazily from chimneys. But the stable looked worse than before. The break-in damage remained visible across the entrance. Deep boot tracks still marked the snow around the property. One of the side windows had been shattered during the fight. Atlas growled softly the moment they arrived. Cole rested a hand briefly against the dog's neck. "I know." Inside, the stable felt colder than ever. The journals remained hidden beneath the floorboards where Cole relocated them before leaving for town. Nothing appeared stolen, but someone had searched hard. Feed sacks overturned, storage crates ripped open, horse stalls disturbed. "They'll come back," Hannah said quietly, while examining the damage. Cole nodded. "Yeah." Atlas immediately limped toward the south wall again, then stopped, listening. Cole followed the dog carefully. "What is it?" Atlas turned toward the floor this time, not the wall. The floorboards beneath the old horse stall. Cole crouched slowly. The wood looked uneven near the back corner, one board darker than the others. He pulled the pry bar from beside the stove and wedged it beneath the plank. The wood groaned upward reluctantly. Dust exploded into the air. Below sat solid stone, but not foundation stone. A trapdoor. Cole and Hannah exchanged stunned looks. The metal ring handle had been hidden beneath dirt and age for decades. Atlas whined softly beside them. Cole gripped the handle tightly and pulled. At first, nothing happened. Then, with a deep grinding sound, the heavy hatch slowly lifted open. Cold air rushed upward from below, carrying the smell of damp earth, rust, and something chemical. A tunnel. Hannah stepped backward instinctively. "Oh my God!" Cole aimed his flashlight downward. Stone stairs disappeared into darkness beneath the stable. The beam revealed old wooden support beams reinforced with steel braces. Moisture dripped steadily from the ceiling somewhere below. Atlas barked sharply. Not fear. Recognition. Cole looked at Hannah. "You don't have to come." She grabbed a second flashlight from her bag. "Former Army medic," she said calmly. "I make terrible life decisions." For the first time in days, Cole actually smiled. Small, tired, real. The tunnel descended deep beneath the valley floor. Their boots echoed softly against wet stone while Atlas moved ahead despite his injuries, sniffing the air constantly. The deeper they went, the colder the air became. Then the smell hit harder. Chemical rot, oil, something toxic. The tunnel widened suddenly into an underground chamber supported by old mining beams blackened with age. Cole's flashlight swept across the darkness and stopped. Rows of rusted chemical barrels lined the cavern walls. Military crates stacked nearby beneath plastic tarps, warning labels scratched away deliberately. Hannah covered her mouth. "Jesus!" Atlas growled low beside them. Cole stepped toward one of the crates carefully. The lid had already rotted partially open. Inside sat military-grade ammunition sealed in waterproof containers. Not old either. Recent. Very recent. Hannah shined her flashlight toward the far wall. More tunnels branched deeper beneath the mountains. An entire hidden network. Cole's stomach tightened. Nathan hadn't exaggerated anything. This valley had become a smuggling route, and beneath all of it, poison. A faint trickling sound echoed nearby. Cole followed it deeper into the chamber until his flashlight found a narrow underground stream flowing beneath the rock floor. The water shimmered strangely beneath the light. Rainbow chemical streaks floated across the surface. Hannah knelt beside it carefully. No wonder people got sick. Cole remembered the journal entries now. Dead cattle, Black Creek water, missing records. Everything connected here underground, like veins beneath the mountain. Atlas suddenly barked sharply again, this time toward another section of tunnel. Cole moved carefully after him, then froze. Names. Dozens of names carved into one support beam. Dates beside them. Former military personnel. Security contractors. Veterans. Some crossed out violently with black paint. Cole recognized the pattern instantly. Missing workers. Loose ends. People erased after asking questions. Hannah looked pale now. This isn't dumping anymore. No. Cole stared at the carved names. It's organized. Atlas sniffed near the wall suddenly and pawed at loose dirt beneath another support beam. Cole crouched beside him. Buried beneath debris sat a rusted metal lockbox. The brass key fit perfectly. Inside were shipping manifests, transport records, photographs, and one sealed envelope addressed in Nathan Barrett's handwriting. For Cole. Cole opened it carefully. Inside sat a folded map of the tunnel system beneath Black Hollow. Certain sections circled in red ink. One phrase written across the bottom. They buried everything under the town. Cole stared at the map while cold dread settled through his chest. Because suddenly he understood why Warren Grady wanted the stable so badly. The stable wasn't valuable because of the land. It was valuable because it sat directly above the truth. Atlas growled again, this time louder. Cole looked up instantly. Faintly, through the tunnels came another sound. Voices, echoing underground. Hannah heard them too. Flashlights. Multiple. Moving closer. Someone else had entered the tunnels, and they were coming straight toward them. The voices echoed faintly through the underground darkness, distorted by wet stone and old mining shafts. Atlas's growl deepened instantly. Cole killed his flashlight. Darkness swallowed the chamber. Hannah froze beside him. The only sounds now were dripping water, distant footsteps, and the soft rumble of the mountain above them. Cole leaned close to Hannah. How many? She listened carefully. At least 3. Atlas moved silently beside Cole despite the stitches in his side. The old shepherd's body lowered into alert posture, every muscle tense. The approaching flashlights flickered faintly down the tunnel ahead. Cole's combat instincts returned fully now. Cold, sharp, focused. No panic anymore. Just calculations. Tunnel width, angles, distance, possible exits. He quickly folded Nathan's map and shoved it inside his jacket. The lockbox followed. Back tunnel, he whispered. Hannah nodded. The 3 of them moved silently deeper into the underground network while voices carried closer behind them. Spread out. Check the side chambers. Grady wants everything. Atlas glanced backward repeatedly while guiding them through the dark maze of mining shafts. The tunnels twisted beneath Black Hollow like buried veins beneath the mountain. Cole suddenly understood why Nathan had stayed. This wasn't just corruption anymore. This was a hidden operation large enough to destroy entire lives if exposed. Maybe entire towns. The deeper they moved, the more signs of activity appeared. Fresh tire tracks in the dirt, fuel containers, modern electrical wiring running along the walls. This place was still being used, still active. Hannah stopped suddenly near a rusted support beam. Cole. He turned. Her flashlight revealed something painted faintly on the wall. A military transport symbol. The same one burned into the stable beams upstairs. Cole's stomach tightened. This wasn't local, he muttered. No. The voices behind them grew louder. Flashlights swept through distant tunnels now. They were being hunted underground. Atlas suddenly barked once sharply, then bolted toward another passage. Atlas! The dog disappeared around the bend. Cole cursed softly and followed. The tunnel narrowed sharply before opening into another chamber larger than the first. And then they saw it. Rail tracks, underground transport rails disappearing deeper beneath the mountain. Old mining carts sat abandoned nearby beside stacks of military crates covered by heavy tarps. One tarp had slipped partially loose. Underneath sat rows of assault rifles packed in grease-lined containers. Hannah stared in disbelief. "Oh my God." Cole moved toward the rails slowly. This was never just smuggling. Atlas stood near the far side of the chamber, growling toward another tunnel entrance. Then the first flashlight beam appeared behind them. "There!" Gunfire exploded through the tunnels. Stone shattered beside Cole's head. Hannah ducked instantly behind an overturned mining cart. Atlas lunged into darkness, barking violently. Cole grabbed Hannah and shoved her behind cover as more shots echoed underground. The tunnels amplified every sound into thunder. Cole spotted a rusted chain hanging above one of the old rail carts. Without hesitation, he yanked it hard. The brakes released instantly. The heavy mining cart roared down the sloped tracks directly toward the gunman. Metal screamed against rails. Men shouted. Then the cart slammed into the tunnel passage in a violent crash that filled the chamber with dust and splintered wood. Temporary blockage. "Move!" Cole shouted. They ran deeper into the tunnels. Atlas limped beside them despite the fresh strain on his injury. The underground air grew warmer strangely as they descended. Then came the smell. Smoke. Cole stopped instantly. Smoke underground meant disaster. Hannah noticed it too. Fire. Somewhere behind them, flames crackled faintly through the tunnels. Then another terrifying sound echoed beneath the mountain. An explosion. The entire tunnel shook violently. Dust rained from the ceiling. Atlas barked sharply. Cole turned back toward the direction they'd come from. Orange light flickered faintly through distant passageways now. "They lit the tunnels," Hannah whispered. "No, not the tunnels." Cole suddenly realized the truth. The stable. Grady's men were burning the stable above them. Another explosion thundered through the mountain. Support beams groaned overhead. Loose rocks crashed onto the tracks nearby. The tunnels had become a death trap. "Run!" Cole shouted. Smoke rolled through the shafts rapidly now, thick and black. Atlas raced ahead, barking desperately. The old dog knew the way out. Cole and Hannah followed through choking darkness while the mountain trembled around them. Then Cole heard it. The sound that froze his blood solid. Cracking timber overhead. The stable collapsing. Suddenly, Afghanistan returned. Not memories. Reality. Burning convoy. Explosions. Men trapped beneath twisted metal. Smoke so thick it erased the world. Cole stumbled hard against the tunnel wall, breathing too fast now. Not here. Not again. The firelight flashing through smoke triggered everything at once. Voices screaming. Radio static. Bodies burning beneath mountain snow. Hannah grabbed his arm sharply. "Cole!" But he barely heard her. The tunnel became Afghanistan. The smoke became diesel fires. The mountain became war again. Atlas barked furiously and shoved himself against Cole's chest, hard. Grounding pressure. The same way he had overseas. Cole looked down. Atlas stared directly into his eyes. "Stay here. Stay now. Not there." Cole sucked in a violent breath. The panic loosened slightly. Another explosion rocked the tunnels. Hannah pointed ahead. "Exit!" A narrow shaft of daylight appeared through the smoke. Atlas sprinted toward it immediately. Cole forced himself forward. The tunnel angled upward sharply until suddenly they burst out into the freezing open air beneath the mountainside. Cole collapsed into snow, coughing violently. Fresh air burned his lungs. Hannah fell beside him. Atlas staggered several feet ahead before collapsing into the snow as well. Then Cole looked up and saw the stable burning. Flames towered into the darkening sky while black smoke rolled across Bitterroot Ridge. The entire structure had become a furnace against the snow-covered valley. Roof beams collapsed inward in showers of sparks. The fire glowed orange across the mountains for miles. Cole stared silently. His father's stable, Nathan's secrets, everything burning. The heat reached them even from halfway down the ridge. Hannah covered her mouth. They're destroying the evidence. Cole's jaw tightened. Not all of it. The map remained inside his jacket. The lockbox, too. But the journals, the tapes, the hidden compartment. Gone. Atlas slowly dragged himself closer through the snow despite exhaustion and pain. Cole knelt beside him instantly. The dog's side bled again, where the stitches had torn partially open during the escape. Still, Atlas pressed himself against Cole's shoulder. Alive. Still alive. Sirens echoed faintly from town below. Too late. The stable roof collapsed completely in a roar of sparks and falling timber. Cole watched the flames consume everything Nathan Barrett had protected for decades. Then headlights appeared near the road above the valley. Black SUV. Warren Grady himself stepped out beside it wearing a long dark coat. Even from a distance, Cole recognized him. Grady stood silently watching the fire consume the stable, watching his life's evidence disappear. Then his eyes found Cole across the snowy ridge. For one long moment, neither man moved. The fire crackled between them like a living thing. Grady slowly smiled. Not relief. Not victory. Warning. Then he climbed back into the SUV and disappeared into the storm-dark road. Cole remained kneeling beside Atlas while snow began falling again around the burning stable ruins. The old dog rested his head against Cole's leg, and for the first time since arriving in Black Hollow, Cole realized something terrifying. Warren Grady wasn't afraid of the law. He was afraid of what still survived. Because somewhere beneath the fire, beneath the valley, beneath all the buried lies, Nathan Barrett had hidden something even more dangerous than evidence, something worth killing for. The stable burned through most of the night. Flames lit the Bitterroot Mountains in violent shades of orange while smoke rolled across the frozen valley like storm clouds. By dawn, little remained except blackened support beams and the old stone foundation buried beneath ash and snow. Cole Barrett stood on the ridge overlooking the ruins with Atlas beside him. The old shepherd leaned heavily against Cole's leg now, weakened from blood loss and exhaustion, but still refusing to stay behind at Hannah's clinic. The fire crackled softly below. Snow drifted through the smoke. Cole stared at the ruins in silence. Nathan Barrett's stable was gone. Every childhood memory he never understood. Every secret his father died protecting. Burned. Hannah approached carefully behind him, holding 2 cups of coffee wrapped in gloves. You should eat something. Cole took the cup without looking away from the ruins. Funny thing about combat, he said quietly. After enough destruction, your brain stops reacting. Hannah studied him. That isn't strength. No. He looked down at the ashes. It's damage. Atlas slowly lowered himself into the snow beside them. The old dog's breathing remained shallow but steady. Cole crouched immediately and adjusted the blanket draped over Atlas's shoulders. You should still be at the clinic. Atlas ignored him. Typical. Hannah handed Cole a folded newspaper from town. The front page headline read, Fire destroys historic Barrett stable. Below it sat a smaller line. Cause unknown. Cole almost laughed. Unknown? Grady owns half the town, Hannah said quietly. The other half owes him money. Cole looked toward Black Hollow below the ridge. Smoke rose peacefully from chimneys while morning sunlight reflected across snow-covered rooftops. Normal. Quiet. Like the town itself was pretending nothing happened. But people knew. He could feel it now. The fear. The silence. The way folks avoided eye contact whenever Grady's name surfaced. That kind of silence didn't come from loyalty. It came from survival. Atlas suddenly lifted his head. A truck approached slowly through the valley road below. Old red pickup. Earl Dawson. The mechanic climbed out, carrying something wrapped in canvas beneath his arm. He approached carefully through the snow. "You all right?" he asked. Cole nodded once. "Dog?" "Still breathing." Earl crouched beside Atlas and scratched gently behind the shepherd's ears. "Tough old bastard." Atlas accepted the attention reluctantly. Earl stood again and looked toward the burned stable. "They finally did it." Cole studied him carefully. "You knew they'd burn it?" Earl sighed heavily. "Grady's burned lots of things over the years." The old mechanic handed Cole the canvas bundle. Inside sat several weathered folders protected by plastic wrapping. More documents, photographs, maps. Cole frowned. "What's this?" "Insurance." Earl stared toward the ruins. "Nathan gave them to me years ago. Said if anything happened to him, or the stable, I was supposed to wait for you." Cole's chest tightened unexpectedly. Even after decades, Nathan had planned ahead, prepared, protected. Earl looked exhausted suddenly, like a man tired of carrying old guilt. "We all knew something was wrong in this valley," he admitted quietly. "Water started killing livestock years back. Folks got sick. Wells turned black some winters." He shook his head slowly. "But Grady paid mortgages, paid hospital bills, paid for funerals. Bought silence," Cole said. "Yeah." The old mechanic stared at the mountains. "Fear makes decent people look away." Hannah opened one of the folders carefully. Inside sat photographs of dead cattle near poisoned streams, medical reports, water contamination records, missing person notices. One photo stopped Cole cold. 3 men standing near mining tunnels. All veterans. All names he'd seen carved underground. Missing. Earl noticed his expression. "They disappeared after asking questions." Cole looked up sharply. "You knew that too?" "Everybody knew." Earl's voice cracked slightly. Nobody said it out loud. Snow drifted softly across the burned ridge around them. Then another truck approached from town. This time slower. An elderly woman stepped out holding a glass jar filled with cloudy water. Then another vehicle arrived. And another. By noon, people from Black Hollow slowly began climbing the ridge toward the burned stable ruins. Farmers, widows, retired miners, families carrying photographs and folders and jars of poisoned creek water. Ghosts finally speaking. A thin rancher named Walter Briggs approached first. "My cattle died 2 winters ago," he said quietly. "County blamed bad feed." A woman beside him shook her head. "My husband worked security for Grady Excavation." Her eyes filled with tears. "He disappeared 3 years ago." Another man held up photographs of black sludge leaking into frozen streams. "Sheriff told us to stop asking questions." Hannah looked stunned. The entire town had been living with this corruption for years, too afraid to fight it alone. Cole understood that feeling better than anyone. Isolation made people weak. Fear kept them obedient. But something had changed now. The fire, Nathan's journals, the attack. People realized Grady was desperate, and desperate men made mistakes. Atlas slowly stood, despite exhaustion, and limped toward the burned foundation. Then he stopped, sniffing. Cole immediately followed. The dog pawed gently at a section of collapsed stone near the edge of the ruins. "What is it?" Atlas barked once sharply. Cole dropped to one knee beside him and cleared ash-covered debris carefully. Beneath the rubble sat another metal hatch partially buried under collapsed beams. Hannah stared. "There's another tunnel?" Cole pried the hatch open slowly. Cold air rushed upward. Atlas growled softly into the darkness. Cole aimed his flashlight below. A drainage tunnel, narrower than the mining routes. Water trickled through it beneath the mountain, and halfway inside, a waterproof military case sat wedged between rocks. Cole climbed down carefully and dragged the case free. The seal remained intact, despite smoke and water. Atlas barked sharply again, as if he already knew what mattered inside. Cole opened the latches slowly. Shipping manifests, military contracts, transfer records, detailed cargo inventories tied directly to Warren Grady's companies. And underneath all of it, a ledger. Names, payments, dates, government contacts, sheriff departments, transportation officials, people bought and paid for over decades. Hannah looked pale. This could destroy him. No, Cole said quietly while turning pages. This destroys all of them. Then he found the final item inside the case. A cassette tape labeled, "If They Burn the Stable." Cole stared at it silently. Nathan Barrett had expected this. Expected the fire. Expected Grady to panic eventually. The old man had buried backup evidence beneath the foundation itself. Cole suddenly laughed softly. Not from humor. From realization. My father was smarter than all of them. Earl nodded slowly. Nathan Barrett survived war before Warren Grady ever learned how to start one. Atlas pressed close beside Cole, while snow continued falling gently over the ruins. The old dog looked exhausted now, older somehow. Cole rested a hand against his neck. You found it again, he whispered. Atlas leaned into him weakly, and standing there among ashes and snow, surrounded by frightened townspeople finally ready to speak, Cole felt something shift inside him. The numbness, the drifting, the emptiness he'd carried since leaving the military. For the first time in years, he wasn't just surviving anymore. He was fighting for something. Not revenge, not money, truth. The feeling startled him, because deep down, he realized something else too. Nathan Barrett never expected to survive this war. He only expected his son to finish it. And somewhere far below Black Hollow, Warren Grady was beginning to understand the terrible mistake he'd made. He should have left the stable standing. The first federal vehicles arrived 3 days later. Black SUVs rolled slowly into Black Hollow beneath heavy gray skies, while state police cruisers blocked both ends of Main Street. Snow continued falling steadily across the town, blanketing rooftops and frozen sidewalks in silence. People watched from diner windows, from porches, from behind curtains. Nobody in Black Hollow had seen this many law enforcement vehicles in decades. Cole Barrett stood outside Hannah Reeves's clinic, with Atlas beside him when the convoy arrived. The old German shepherd leaned slightly against Cole's leg, still healing from his injuries, but refusing to remain indoors. A tall man in a dark FBI winter coat stepped out from the lead vehicle. Mid-50s, sharp eyes, military posture. He approached Hannah first. "Haven't seen you since Kandahar," he said quietly. Hannah almost smiled. "Didn't expect our reunion to involve domestic terrorism and poisoned groundwater." The man nodded once before turning toward Cole. "Special Agent Daniel Mercer." Cole shook his hand carefully. "Cole Barrett." Mercer's eyes drifted toward Atlas. "That dog military?" "Retired." "Not really." Cole glanced down at Atlas. The old shepherd remained focused on the vehicles, scanning, working. Mercer lowered his voice. "Hannah sent us copies of the manifests and ledgers last night." He paused. "If they're authentic, Warren Grady's been running illegal operations through this valley for 30 years. "They're authentic," Cole said. Mercer believed him immediately. Combat veterans recognized each other in strange ways. Not by words, by stillness, by the way they watched exits automatically, by how exhaustion settled into the eyes. "We're raiding Grady excavation this morning," Mercer said. Quarry 2. Cole looked toward the mountains. He won't stay. Mercer nodded slowly. No. Men like Grady always run eventually. Atlas suddenly growled. Low, focused. Everyone turned. Across Main Street, a black SUV sat parked beside the hardware store. Empty, but running. Cole recognized it immediately. Grady's vehicle. Mercer's hand moved subtly toward his sidearm. Teams are already moving on his ranch. Cole shook his head. He's not there. At that exact moment, the SUV accelerated hard down the icy road toward the north end of town. Mercer shouted instantly, "Move!" Federal agents rushed toward their vehicles, but Cole was already moving. Atlas sprinted beside him despite his injuries. Cole jumped into his rusted pickup while Hannah climbed into the passenger seat. "You're not seriously coming?" Cole asked. Hannah slammed the door shut. "You think I'm letting two stubborn soldiers chase an armed criminal alone in a snowstorm?" Fair point. The pickup roared onto the road behind the fleeing SUV, while sirens erupted across Black Hollow behind them. Snow whipped violently across the windshield as they tore through town toward the logging roads, climbing into the mountains. Atlas stood between the seats, barking sharply. "He's heading north," Cole muttered. "Toward the Canadian routes?" Hannah asked. "Or the tunnels?" The SUV disappeared briefly around icy bends ahead. The mountain roads narrowed dangerously as they climbed higher above the valley. Pine forests crowded close on both sides, while steep cliffs dropped into frozen ravines below. The storm worsened rapidly. Wind screamed through the mountains. Visibility dropped to almost nothing. But Atlas kept reacting before every turn, growling, shifting, warning Cole seconds before the SUV appeared again ahead through the snow. He's tracking him, Hannah realized. Cole nodded tightly. Military dogs trained on scent memory never truly forgot. Atlas remembered Warren Grady. The chase climbed deeper into the Bitterroots. The logging road became rough ice and packed snow winding through thick forest. Branches snapped beneath the storm overhead. Then suddenly, the SUV ahead swerved sharply onto an abandoned side road. Cole followed instantly. The pickup bounced violently over frozen ruts while Atlas barked hard. "What's out here?" Hannah shouted over the storm. Cole saw it a second later. Old bridge, wooden, half collapsed over a frozen canyon river. Grady's SUV fishtailed wildly as it crossed. Cole slammed the brakes hard. Too dangerous. The bridge groaned beneath the SUV's weight while snow blasted sideways through the canyon. Then Grady abandoned the vehicle entirely. He sprinted into the forest on foot. Atlas barked furiously. Cole grabbed his jacket. "No!" Atlas ignored him completely and launched himself from the truck into deep snow. "Damn it!" Cole ran after him. The forest swallowed them instantly. Snow reached nearly to Cole's knees, while pine branches clawed overhead in the wind. Atlas tracked fast despite his limp, weaving through trees with terrifying focus. Ahead, Warren Grady crashed through the woods desperately, no longer calm, no longer powerful, just frightened. Cole gained ground quickly. Years of SEAL training returned fully now. Movement through terrain, tracking patterns, predicting escape routes. Grady glanced backward once, and panic flashed across his face when he saw Atlas closing the distance. The old shepherd hit him moments later. Atlas slammed into Grady's chest with enough force to knock both men into the snow. Grady screamed as Atlas pinned him beneath snapping jaws and furious barking. Cole reached them seconds later. "Atlas!" The dog obeyed instantly, but remained standing over Grady, growling savagely. Merciless now, protective. Grady looked nothing like the polished businessman from the diner anymore. Snow covered his expensive coat. Blood streaked one cheek from branches. Fear hollowed out his face. "You have no idea what you're destroying," he hissed at Cole. Cole grabbed him by the coat collar and hauled him upright. No, Cole said coldly. You destroyed it a long time ago. Sirens echoed faintly through the mountains below. Federal vehicles approaching. Grady looked toward the sound with hatred burning in his eyes. You think this ends with me? He spat. There are people above me you can't even imagine. Cole stared at him silently. Maybe. Snow whipped around them violently. But you're the one my father warned me about. That landed. For the first time, Warren Grady looked uncertain. Cole stepped closer. Nathan Barrett died protecting this town from you. Grady's face darkened instantly. That old fool ruined everything. No, Cole said quietly. He just lived long enough to expose it. Atlas growled again. Grady glanced nervously toward the dog. Then headlights flooded through the forest. Federal agents emerged between the trees with weapons drawn. FBI! Hands where we can see them! Mercer approached through the snow moments later. He looked at Grady, then at Cole, then at Atlas standing guard beside them. Well, Mercer muttered, looks like the dog solved the case. Atlas barked once sharply as if accepting the compliment. Federal agents led Grady away in handcuffs through the storm, while the mountains echoed with helicopter blades somewhere overhead. Cole stood silently among the snow-covered pines, watching the man disappear. No triumph came, no satisfaction, only exhaustion. The kind that settled into your bones after war finally ended. Hannah approached beside him quietly. It's over. Cole looked down at Atlas. The old shepherd leaned heavily against his leg now, breathing hard from the chase. No, Cole said softly, while resting a hand against the dog's neck. Not yet. Back in Black Hollow, the town erupted by nightfall. News vans arrived. Reporters crowded Main Street. Federal agents raided Grady Excavation and the quarry simultaneously, uncovering weapons caches, toxic dumping sites, and buried transport tunnels beneath the valley. People finally talked openly now. Families came forward with decades of hidden stories. Missing relatives, dead livestock, poisoned wells. Fear turned into anger almost overnight. And through all of it, Cole Barrett remained strangely quiet, because deep inside, another battle had already started. Without Warren Grady, without tunnels, without firefights. Silence. That was always the dangerous part. Late that night, Cole stood alone outside the burned stable ruins beneath falling snow, while Atlas rested nearby wrapped in blankets. The old dog slept peacefully for the first time since arriving in Black Hollow. No growling, no guarding, just rest. Cole looked down at the blackened stone foundation buried beneath snow. Nathan Barrett had won. Not by surviving, by enduring long enough to leave the truth behind. Cole finally understood that now. A man didn't survive war because he was fearless. He survived because something mattered more than fear. Snow drifted softly across the ruins, and for the first time in decades, Cole Barrett no longer felt homeless beneath the mountains. Winter settled deeper over Black Hollow in the weeks that followed Warren Grady's arrest. The frenzy faded first. News vans disappeared. Federal convoys rolled out of town one by one. Reporters stopped calling. But the silence that remained afterward felt different now. Cleaner, somehow. Like the valley itself was finally breathing again after holding its lungs tight for 30 years. The burned stable still stood in ruins atop Bitterroot Ridge, blackened beams jutting from the snow like broken ribs against the pale Montana sky. The fire had destroyed most of the structure, leaving only the old stone foundation and scattered fragments of timber beneath the drifting white. Cole visited it every morning, sometimes with tools, sometimes with coffee. Always with Atlas. The old German shepherd limped heavily now. The knife wound and tunnel escape had permanently damaged his left shoulder. Cold weather stiffened his joints badly some mornings, But he never stayed behind. Never once. Even injured, Atlas followed Cole everywhere across the ridge like he still believed the mission wasn't over. Maybe part of him did. The legal storm surrounding Black Hollow grew larger each week. Federal investigators uncovered toxic dumping sites throughout the mountains. Hidden tunnels stretched farther beneath the valley than anyone imagined. Corrupt county officials began disappearing into courtrooms and police custody. Warren Grady himself remained locked inside a federal detention center 2 counties away awaiting trial. People talked openly now. That was the strangest part. At Martha Bell's diner, ranchers who once whispered now argued loudly about lawsuits and poisoned wells over black coffee and eggs. Families brought forward old photographs, missing records, and buried stories they'd hidden for years. Fear was finally losing ground to truth. Cole sat near the diner window one gray morning, while snow fell softly outside. Atlas rested beneath the booth beside him, wrapped in an old army blanket. Martha refilled Cole's coffee quietly. "You look tired." Cole stared out at Main Street. "I am." "You sleeping?" "Not much." She nodded like she already knew the answer. War didn't end cleanly for men like Cole Barrett. Even after danger passed, the body stayed prepared for it. That was the ugly secret nobody talked about enough. Combat rewired people. Silence became suspicious. Peace became uncomfortable. And once survival became your identity, you stopped knowing what to do with ordinary life afterward. Atlas shifted slightly beneath the booth. Cole immediately looked down. The dog blinked up at him sleepily. Still checking. Still protecting. Martha smiled softly. "That dog watches you like you're the last person left on Earth." Cole scratched gently behind Atlas's ears. "Feels like he is sometimes." Martha's expression softened. "Well." She glanced around the busy diner. "Maybe not anymore." Cole looked up. For the first time since arriving in Black Hollow, people weren't staring at him like an outsider. No pity, no suspicion, just recognition. Nathan Barrett's son. The veteran who stayed. The man whose dog helped expose the truth buried beneath their valley. The feeling unsettled him more than loneliness ever had, because belonging meant something to lose. Later that afternoon, Cole returned to the stable ruins carrying lumber in the bed of his truck. Snow crunched beneath his boots while Atlas followed slowly behind. The ridge overlooked the entire valley now. White fields, frozen rivers, smoke curling peacefully from chimneys below, beautiful enough to hurt. Cole dropped the lumber beside the foundation stones and stared at the remains quietly. He still heard the fire sometimes at night. Still smelled smoke inside his dreams, but now other memories surfaced too. Nathan teaching him to repair fencing. His mother laughing near the horse stalls. Summer sunlight through stable windows decades ago before everything went wrong. The place no longer felt haunted. It felt unfinished. A truck approached slowly through the snow behind him. Cole turned. Earl Dawson climbed out first, then Walter Briggs, then 3 more locals carrying toolboxes and lumber. Cole frowned slightly. "What's all this?" Earl shrugged. "Looks like a barn raising." Cole stared at them. "You don't have to do this." Walter snorted. "Whole town spent 30 years letting your old man fight alone." He lifted a hammer from the truck bed. "Figure we're a little overdue." More vehicles arrived throughout the afternoon. Ranchers, mechanics, families from town, even teenagers carrying nails and plywood through the snow. Nobody made speeches. Nobody talked much. They just started working, clearing burned beams, rebuilding fence posts, measuring the foundation. Atlas watched the activity from beside the fire barrel Cole lit near the ridge. For the first time in weeks, the old dog seemed calm. No growling, no tension. Just quiet observation while people moved around the ruins. Hannah arrived near sunset carrying veterinary supplies and sandwiches for everyone. She smiled faintly at the growing structure. Looks like Black Hollow finally decided to wake up. Cole leaned against the foundation wall beside her. I didn't ask for this. No. Hannah glanced toward the workers. That's why it matters. The rebuilt stable rose slowly over the next 2 months. Not quickly, carefully, piece by piece beneath heavy Montana winter skies. The townspeople refused to let Cole pay for most of the labor. Consider it repayment, Earl said one morning while installing roof beams. For what? The old mechanic looked toward Atlas sleeping near the stove inside the temporary work shelter. For reminding us fear isn't supposed to decide who we become. That stayed with Cole longer than he expected. At night, after the workers left, Cole often remained alone inside the partially rebuilt stable with Atlas beside the fire. Those quiet hours were hardest, without adrenaline, without danger. The PTSD returned strongest during peace. Some nights he woke gasping from combat nightmares while snow hammered the roof overhead. Convoys burning beneath Afghan mountains. Friends screaming through static-filled radios. Smoke, fire, loss, always loss. Each time Atlas woke instantly beside him. The old shepherd would limp across the wooden floor and press against Cole's chest until the shaking stopped, grounding him again, just like overseas. One sleepless night near February, Cole sat wrapped in blankets beside the fire while wind moaned outside the stable walls. Atlas rested nearby, chewing slowly on an old rawhide bone Hannah brought him. Cole stared into the flames. You know, he said quietly, I spent years thinking I survived because I was strong. Atlas looked up. Cole shook his head faintly. Truth is, I survived because somebody always dragged me back. The dog thumped his tail once against the floorboards. Cole smiled tiredly. Yeah, mostly you. Snow rattled softly against the windows. The rebuilt stable smelled of fresh pine lumber now instead of ash. Home. The word still felt strange inside his head, but maybe less impossible than before. One afternoon, Hannah found Cole sanding rough cedar beams near the stable entrance while Atlas slept in sunlight nearby. You ever think about leaving? She asked. Cole looked out across the valley. Months ago, he would have answered immediately. Now he hesitated. That truck stop outside Missoula, he said quietly. I used to think surviving meant never staying anywhere long enough to lose it. Hannah leaned beside him against the doorway. And now? Cole looked toward Atlas. The old shepherd slept peacefully for once, paws twitching slightly beneath warm sunlight. Now I think maybe surviving means the opposite. The stable roof stood fully repaired by early March. Fresh timber replaced the burned walls. New windows reflected mountain sunlight across the valley. Smoke rose once again from the stone chimney above the rebuilt tack room. People from town gathered quietly the evening the final support beam went up. No ceremony, just coffee, laughter, children running through fresh snow around the barnyard. Cole stood near the doorway watching it all while Atlas rested at his feet. The old dog looked tired these days, older, but peaceful. And as snow drifted softly through the fading Montana light, Cole Barrett realized something that frightened him almost as much as war once had. He finally wanted to stay. Spring arrived slowly in Black Hollow. The snow retreated inch by inch from the valley floor, revealing dark earth, old fence posts, and stubborn patches of frozen grass beneath the mountains. Meltwater rushed through creeks swollen from winter runoff, while pine forests dripped beneath warmer sunlight. For the first time in years, the valley looked alive. The rebuilt stable stood proudly atop Bitterroot Ridge now. Fresh cedar walls glowed gold beneath the morning sun. New windows reflected the mountains around them. The roof no longer sagged. Smoke curled peacefully from the stone chimney every dawn. People in town had started calling it Barrett's stable again. But Cole knew the truth. It belonged to more than the Barretts now. It belonged to every broken person who had helped rebuild it. Atlas slept near the fireplace most mornings these days. Age had finally begun catching him. The old German shepherd still followed Cole everywhere, but slower now. His limp remained permanent after the attack in the tunnels. Some mornings he struggled to stand until Cole helped lift him gently. But his eyes had changed. The constant vigilance was gone. No more growling at shadows. No more pacing through the night. For the first time since Afghanistan, Atlas truly rested. And somehow, watching that mattered more to Cole than anything else. One bright April morning, Cole worked alone replacing loose boards beneath the stable floor, while sunlight streamed through open doors carrying the scent of thawing earth and pine. Atlas lay nearby with his head resting on his paws. Children's laughter echoed faintly from the valley below, where local families gathered near the creek. Black Hollow sounded different now. Lighter. Cole knelt near the original stone foundation, adjusting support beams, when Atlas suddenly lifted his head, then slowly stood. The old dog limped toward the center of the stable floor, stopped, sniffed, and began pawing gently at one particular stone. Cole leaned back with a tired smile. "You've got to be kidding me." Atlas barked once sharply. Same stubborn look. Same certainty. Cole grabbed the pry bar resting nearby and approached the spot carefully. The foundation stones here were older than the rest, darkened by decades beneath the stable floor. Atlas kept pawing at one corner insistently. Cole wedged the bar beneath the stone. Pulled. At first nothing moved. Then, with a grinding scrape, the stone shifted slightly. Cole froze. Another compartment. Atlas stepped backward while Cole lifted the stone fully aside. Beneath it sat a small wooden box wrapped carefully in oilcloth. Dry. Protected. Waiting. Cole stared at it silently. Even now, months after Nathan Barrett's death, his father was still speaking through hidden places. Atlas sat beside him quietly, while Cole lifted the box into sunlight. Inside rested three things: a bundle of old family photographs tied with faded ribbon, a Navy Challenge coin darkened with age, and a sealed envelope, Cole's name written across the front, in Nathan Barrett's handwriting. Cole swallowed hard suddenly. Outside, wind moved softly through the pine trees surrounding the ridge. The stable remained perfectly quiet. Atlas rested beside him while Cole carefully opened the envelope. The letter inside shook slightly in his hands. "Son, if you found this, then the stable still stands. That alone means more than you'll ever understand." Cole sat slowly against the foundation wall, while sunlight warmed the stable around him. "I spent most of my life believing survival meant sacrificing everything else. Men like me and Warren Grady learned that lesson in war. But somewhere along the way, he forgot something important. A man survives combat by protecting life, not destroying it." Cole stared at the words while emotion tightened painfully inside his chest. The letter continued. "I know I failed you in many ways. I know you probably spent years believing I abandoned you. Truth is, I believed distance was the only thing keeping you alive. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe fear made me weak. But every choice I made was because I loved you more than my own life." Cole shut his eyes briefly. The old anger finally loosened completely. Gone now. Only grief remained. And strangely, peace. Atlas shifted closer beside him. Nathan's handwriting filled the next page. "The stable was never meant to make you rich. Money disappears. Land burns. Buildings collapse. What matters is whether a man still has somewhere to come home to when the war inside him finally ends. Cole looked slowly around the rebuilt stable. Sunlight through cedar beams, fresh pine scent, hammer marks left by neighbors who helped rebuild it. Atlas resting peacefully beside him. Home. The word no longer frightened him. Nathan continued, "If Black Hollow survived long enough for you to read this, then maybe the valley still has good people left inside it. Trust them. Let them help carry the weight. Nobody survives alone forever, son. And one more thing. Take care of the dog." Cole laughed softly through sudden tears. Typical. Even at the end, Nathan Barrett knew exactly what mattered most. The final line sat alone at the bottom of the page. A man survives war by knowing what's worth protecting. Cole lowered the letter slowly, then looked at the challenge coin resting inside the box. The engraving matched the final sentence perfectly. Atlas rested his head gently against Cole's knee, and after decades of drifting through loneliness, anger, and war, Cole Barrett finally cried without shame, not from pain, from release. The months that followed transformed the stable once again, not into a business, into something far more important. With the remaining inheritance money Nathan had hidden away, Cole rebuilt the surrounding pasture land and converted the stable into a therapy ranch for struggling veterans and retired military dogs. Word spread quickly across Montana. Former soldiers started arriving quietly, men with haunted eyes, women carrying invisible wounds, retired K-9 handlers who understood silence better than conversation. Some stayed a day, some stayed longer. Nobody asked many questions there. The ranch became a place where broken people could breathe again without pretending they were fine. Atlas became the heart of it. Children adored him immediately, despite his gray muzzle and stiff limp. Veterans sat beside him for hours near the fireplace while snow fell outside the windows. Somehow the old shepherd always seemed to know exactly who needed him most. Cole watched that happen often, and each time he understood something deeper about loyalty. Atlas had spent his entire life pulling wounded souls back from darkness, including his own. One autumn evening nearly a year later, the stable glowed warmly beneath falling snow while laughter echoed inside. Veterans sat near the fireplace drinking coffee. Children fed horses in the stalls. Music played softly from an old radio near the tack room. Peace. Real peace. Cole stood quietly near the doorway, watching it all. Atlas slept beside the fire now, paws twitching faintly in dreams, but he no longer slept facing the doors, no longer guarded exits, no longer prepared for attack. For the first time since war, the old dog finally believed they were safe. Hannah stepped beside Cole carrying 2 mugs of coffee. "You built something good here." Cole looked around the stable, at the people, at the warmth, at Atlas sleeping peacefully. "No," he said quietly. "My father did." Snow drifted softly across Bitterroot Ridge outside while firelight flickered against the stable windows. And standing there, surrounded by life instead of loss, Cole Barrett finally understood the real inheritance Nathan Barrett left behind. Not money, not land, not secrets buried beneath mountains, but truth, belonging, forgiveness, purpose. A reason to stay alive long after the war was supposed to end. And beside the fireplace, Atlas slept peacefully at last, no longer standing guard. If you believe a man deserves a place to come home to after war, type "home" down in the comments. And if you've ever had to stand your ground when the world tried to take everything from you, let folks know where you're watching from tonight. Around here, we still believe loyalty, land, and truth are worth fighting for. So if stories like this mean something to you, subscribe and stay with us for the next journey through the mountains, the ranchlands, and the forgotten corners of America.